Hello, I'm Microsoft MVP Tom Morgan. In this video, we're going to walk through building your first Microsoft Teams developer app with JavaScript. We're going to do this by following one of the guides that's available on the Microsoft documentation, and I'm going to go through the whole process with you. You can follow along on my screen share as we're doing it. And then that way you can see how easy it is. If you get stuck doing it yourself, you can refer back to this video, or you can just watch with me and see the steps I go through, and then you're ready to jump into creating your own Teams app using JavaScript. Okay, so a little bit about this video and my setup. As much as I possibly can, I'm going to do this without any editing, so you can see everything that goes on. If we get stuck, if we hit problems, that's really useful for you because probably you're going to hit those problems too. So let's work through them together. Let's come out the other side with something working. I'm going to be doing all of this on a virtual machine that has nothing installed. So we're going to go through all the prerequisites as well, so you understand exactly what you need to do. You might not need to go through all these prereq steps. You might have stuff already installed and configured, but if you don't, we can go through it all on this video. That way you can drop in and out of it as you need to. Okay, let's get started. So first things first, let's drop over to my VM so you can see what I'm seeing. So this is my VM. As I say, it's a brand new virtual machine. There is nothing on it at all. What I've done, really the only thing I've done apart from sign in, is open up Edge and go to the Get Started overview for the Microsoft Teams developer documentation. So that's docs.microsoft.com/Microsoft Teams/get-started-overview. I'll put that up on the screen in the edit so you don't have to kind of listen to me saying it. Let's full screen this for a second. This is where we're going first, building your first app using JavaScript. So let's load this page. Okay, let's walk through this together. So you're going to start building for Microsoft Teams and you're going to create your first Teams app. So first of all, let's just make sure we understand each other. What does that actually mean? We're going to put something inside Teams. We're going to actually create three things looking at this. We're going to create a tabbed app, a bot app, and a messaging extension app, which sounds really interesting for a first app. And each one is going to have a capability. It's going to come with its own UI and UX. Okay, so tabbed apps, what are they? Okay, well, they show up in channels. So if you think about Teams and you've got different teams down the left-hand side of the Teams client, and then inside that, you've got different channels. Inside a channel, you can have different tabs. You've got the conversation tab, the files tab. You can add other ones like wiki. There's lots and lots of other tabs you can add as well. You can put your own tab in there as well, and that's what we're going to be doing. A bot, one of those kind of chat message extensions, so you can have a conversation with something like a machine. A bot shows up in your chat history, shows up as a contact you can chat with. That's exciting. And messaging extensions, what are they? Okay, well, they show up where you go and compose a message. Down at the bottom where the GIFs are and the emoticons are and all that sort of stuff, you can put your own thing down there as well. All right, so what are you going to need? Don't know. I thought that was what this was going to cover. It's not. It's going to tell us what we're going to learn. So how to set up a new project with something called the Teams Toolkit, how to build 3 different types of apps, the structure of them. We're going to look at a bit with React, Node.js, how to deploy. Okay. Let's go. Let's begin. So there's a whole set of prerequisites here. Some are required and some are optional. All right, so let's have a look. Required. So Node.js, a backend JavaScript runtime environment. Okay, I've never done this before. So let's open up this in a new browser and see what happens. Okay, so it takes us to the Node site, node.js.org. And we've got an LTS recommended for most users and a current. Well, I'm going to go with this LTS recommended for most users because I feel like that's probably me. I'm running on Windows. I've got a nice new Windows 11 install going on here. So I'm going to click the Windows installer. And that's going to download and we can install that. Hopefully. So let's just step through that process and see if there's anything complicated about the install. You should check the terms of the license agreement and accept it. I'm just going to go to the default location. I'm going to leave everything exactly as it was. Oh, I missed that bit about, what was that? Something about C and C++. I don't think I care about those. Let's just go install. Okay, so that's going to take a second to install. And we're done. Okay, so I think that's the Node bit done. That was easy. Microsoft Edge or Chrome. Okay, well, we've got Microsoft Edge. That's good. Visual Studio Code we don't have. So use version 1.55 or later. Okay, so let's open this in a new tab and see where we get to. Oh, this takes us nicely to the download page for Visual Studio. That's great. And there's a big Windows download link. So let's click that one. And that runs the download. And we can also click that one. So this is 1.61.2 and we had to download 1.55 or later, so I think we're good. Where's it gone? This user installer is not meant to be run as administrator. Okay. If you would like to install VS Code for all users, I don't want to do that. I just want to install it for me. Oh, I think it's saying because I'm an administrator, it's moaning at me. I mean, I'm okay with that for now. Okay, accept license agreement. Again, install it in the default place. Click, click, click. Let's just kind of keep all the defaults exactly as they are. Should be fine. But if we hit any problems, we can always come back and have a look. Okay. And the other thing that I haven't really installed is Teams, Microsoft Teams client. And I didn't think about that until I kind of started recording this video. That's okay. You might not have the Microsoft Teams client either. At some point in this process, we're going to have to remember to download the Microsoft Teams client. So for now, let's. This is finished. The Visual Studio Code setup wizard's finished. So let's untick Launch Visual Studio Code for a second and click Finish. Okay, so we're done with that. So we're done with all our required prerequisites. Great. So let's have a quick look down these other things. Do we need any of these? I don't know. I think let's not worry about them for now. And we might come back to them if they become required. If it seems like they become required as we're going through these other steps, we can always come back to them. All right, so let's prepare our development environment. Install the Teams toolkit. Okay, so what's the Teams toolkit? Teams toolkit is an extension for Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is the thing that we literally just installed. It's an IDE. It's a bit like a really cut down version of Visual Studio if you've used Visual Studio before, except that it's actually become more and more and more feature rich, and now like it's its own thing. So actually it's pretty powerful. It's just a different IDE for Visual Studio. It's got a concept of extensions, and so one of those extensions is called the Teams Toolkit. That helps us build Teams applications. It's scaffolding for building Teams applications. Okay, so let's get started building and installing the Teams Toolkit. So, okay, you can use the toolkit with Visual Studio Code or the CLI, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, we've got Visual Studio Code. Let's use that. So first things first, we need to open Visual Studio Code. So if you've just installed Visual Studio Code and you don't know how to get back to it, you can click on Start and you can just type Visual or Viz, and you should find Visual Studio Code listed here. So we're going to run Visual Studio Code for the first time. Let's see what it says. Okay, so it wants to know what look we want. Okay, we should probably do that. Ooh, dark. I think we can maybe skip all these steps. You might want to go through these and do some syncing, add some shortcuts, add support for languages, rah, rah, rah. I'm just going to click Mark Done, and we're just going to kind of leave it for now. Let me take these instructions and dock them on this side of the screen, and let's bring Visual Studio back up on this side of the screen. So now we can kind of go through what we're doing. Open Visual Studio, select the extensions view. Okay, that is this little icon here, this little 4 boxes. That is the extensions view. So this brings up all the extensions. In the search box, we want to enter Teams Toolkit. So let's do that. Here it is at the top, big Teams icon, Teams Toolkit. So let's click that. Let's click Install. And that will take a second to install. And when it does, you will see that it shows up here as an icon on the sidebar. So that's very cool. And right, so let's refer back to our documentation. So, let's try and full screen this. Okay, so this bit is done. The Teams Toolkit icon appears in the Visual Studio sidebar after it's installed. Yep, we see that. Good. Set up your Teams development tenant. Okay, so we do need Teams at this point. So if you don't have Microsoft Teams at this point, you need to go and find Microsoft Teams from somewhere. I'm going to kind of assume that you've got Teams set up somewhere. You're running Teams. You've got a login for Teams. That actually isn't true for me on this machine right now because I don't have Teams. If that was the case, what can you do about it? I could go to teams.microsoft.com. I could sign in as an account. Let's do that. Okay, we've got passwordless join, which is nice, which means I don't have to type a password on the screen for you to copy. So that's nice. And okay, and let's sign in. Stay signed in. And this is going to load the Teams client. This web view for running Teams is great, but it's not the best for doing development. There's some things that you might kind of come unstuck. So I would recommend using the desktop client for all your kind of development needs for everything. Whilst you're building it as a developer, I'd use the desktop client unless you specifically know that you want to use the web client to try something out or something like that. Okay. Okay, so I've got a really funny old setup. So what am I missing? I'm missing all sorts of things in my sidebar, but that's okay. Good example of how you can have a completely different looking sidebar, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so I've got Teams here. However, what I'm going to do is download the Teams client. So easy way to do that is these three dots at the top when you're in the web client. Oh, you can't see because my face is in the way. Hang on. Right, these three dots up here, up near your name and tenant name. Click those, click download the desktop app. Okay, that gives you a link to download the latest version of Teams for the platform you're on. So in my case, Windows x64. So we will run that in a second. And that will put the Teams desktop client onto this machine. So all this stuff is worth doing before you even get anywhere close to starting doing any of the kind of development work. All right. So I could probably close this tab now, actually, because what we're going to do is run the installer and then we'll have Teams running as its own application. I'm hoping it'll pop up in a minute. With the installer, it might not. Let's have a look. Let's just open it anyway. Did that work? Did that not? Who knows? Let's just go looking for it in the download folder then. And so we can double click it maybe to run it. Oh, I'm not sure if it's doing anything or not, to be honest. Okay, it was just kind of slow. We are now going to end up with lots of different versions. Okay, so it might just be my VM. The VM that I'm using here might just be kind of a bit slow because, now we're getting all sorts of, that's a funny error. I wonder if it's going to say that for all of them. Yeah, I think it might. Well, this is interesting. Okay, well, I think maybe what happened is I opened this multiple times and then my VM was a little slow, so it took a very long time to do the first one. But now it seems to be okay. Like one of these seems to have worked. So let's click on get started. Maybe it was just installing and it never kind of, like you double clicked it and it installed it without actually saying it was going to install, but it does look like it's kind of installed now. So let's find out if I could type. sign in again. Okay. I don't actually know what that means. That's a kind of different sign-in experience to the one before where it like just wanted to kind of pop the notification. I'm not quite sure what a code means. I mean, maybe it sent it to my email. Let's have a quick look at that. That might be what that means. I mean, it is the email address, so that would sort of make sense, right? Let's have a look. No. Don't think so. Well, that's fun. So when it does this, let's go back again. And I mean, let's try it again. See if it does anything exciting. I don't think it's going to. Wonder what that means. So look. Odd message. Let's close everything and start again. Right. Okay. So let's restart. Restart Teams and try that process again. I didn't think this would be where we would get stuck. So switch Teams app to sign in using a Microsoft account. Oh, chat and collaborate using your work or school account. Switch Teams app to sign in using a Microsoft account. I think I want to use the one with my work or school account. So Tom, old stuff. Okay. Work account. Okay, that's better. I don't know what happened before. Maybe I mistyped it. I don't know. Whatever. This is what I kind of expected, which is the passwordless login. You can optionally do this. I'm just going to say sign into just this app for now. It doesn't make an awful lot of difference to Teams or for what we're doing today. Okay, so let's make sure we have Teams. Gosh, that was an involved process, wasn't it? Whilst that's loading, let's come back and see what we actually need to do with Teams. So after creating your app, so we're into like, after you've actually made your app, you need to load your app in Teams without distributing it. This is known as side loading. Yes, so we're going to create the app and we're going to make it run on our version of Teams without putting it in the store or giving it to anyone else. Do you already have a tenant? Do you already have admin access? Let's check if you really do. Okay, so in the Teams, this is a good process to go through. So in Teams client, one more step to set up Teams with Office. Okay. I guess so. Good. All right. So in the Teams app, what we need to do is go to apps, which takes us to the store. Next thing we need to do is click Manage Your Apps and look for an option to upload a custom app. Okay, I don't see that option. I don't see the option to say I can upload to my org's app catalog because I'm an admin and I could submit an app to the org. But what I don't see is the option to sideload. Okay. So if this is you, then you need to do something else. So the first thing you need to do is go and find an administrator and tell them that you want to be able to upload custom apps. If you are an administrator and you want to know what to do next, that's okay too. So let's do that together. So let's go to admin.teams.microsoft.com. So if you're not an admin, you can safely ignore this section, or you might just be interested in seeing what it looks like. So this is the Microsoft Teams Admin Center. The bit you want to go to figure out what's going on is Teams Apps and Setup Policies, I think. Now, if you look at my user account, let's just find my user. So if we look at policies for my user, you can see I've got a strange app setup policy called panel policy, which is different from the global one. So I can click on this and go and have a look at this policy. It will take me to the right place in Teams App Setup Policies. And you'll notice that for this policy, upload custom apps is turned off. So I'm going to turn that on. In fact, well, I'm going to do that. That's one thing you could do. Go and find the policy for the user you care about and go and save it. The other thing you can do, of course, is take that user and put them into a different policy that does have access. So that's the other thing I might do as well, is I'm going to edit these policies and take the app setup policy, where is it, and put it back to the global. And I want to apply all that. Okay, notice this at the top. It may take a few hours for those changes to take effect. Okay, so that's going to be a bit of a pain for us doing this video and doing this work here. However, I'm going to carry on anyway, and we'll come back to this later. What I might do actually is sign out of this for now. And then when we come back to it, we'll sign into it and see if it's changed and see if we get that setting to upload. Oh, hello. And then we can come back. If not, I can kind of pause the video. I'll wait for it all to sync up and come back again. If that was you, if you had to go and turn on custom apps, just be aware it can take a little bit of time. So constantly come back and check. This is what you're looking for, this upload a custom app experience. If you have that, then you're good. There's a section down here for if you don't have Teams, if you don't have access to Teams. That's useful. So if you're watching all this and you don't have access to Teams, or even if you do have access to Teams, but it's really, really locked down and you know that going to find an administrator is going to be a real challenge and they're never going to turn on like custom apps anyway, this might be a better way to go because you can create your own tenant. You can sign out of Teams from your kind of corporate or work or whatever it is and sign into this one whilst you're working on this and then sign out again and be done with it. Sign back into the corporate one. It's free to create a Teams developer account. So that might be a really good place for you to go. You become an admin over that as well, so you can change anything you want. You can go into that Teams admin center. You've got complete control. So that could be a really good place to go and create a Teams developer account. Okay. And there's a bit here about hosting resources in Azure. That's another thing we're going to do. So I imagine in a minute, we're going to deploy some of this stuff somewhere and it's probably going to be in Azure, so we might need an Azure account. So that's also worth bearing in mind. If you don't have access to one of those, you can create a free account there as well. So lots of places to go. Don't feel like this is not open to you at all. All right, let's keep going. Creating a project workspace for your app. Right, okay. What are we going to do? So what does this work? So first things first is building out the tabbed app. Right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to build a tab app. This is this part, not the bot, not the messaging extension. So this is going to show us how to set up a tab project and what it looks like. All right, so we think the prerequisites are in place. So let's start. So open Visual Studio Code. We already have it open. Select the Teams toolkit icon in the Visual Studio sidebar, then click Create a New Teams app. All right, let's walk through this process. So let me full screen this so you can see everything. We already, clicked onto the Teams toolkit. Here it is. We're going to click Create a New Teams app. Let's give it a nice name. My first Teams app, I guess. Tab app. Let's call it Tab app. Okay. Ensure that the tab UI-based app is selected as the capability. So the nice thing about this toolkit is that it doesn't cope very well with... here it is. Sorry, it does cope very well with tabbing. Okay. Don't know how you... Oh, okay, you can't press enter. Don't press enter. You've got to click this tick box. Nope, you can't do that either. What's going on? Create a new tab. Oh, what? Oh, did I type the name in there like an idiot? I probably did. Okay. Don't do what I did. Don't be an idiot. Let's start again. Create a new Teams app. Okay. Do what it says and select the option, which is create a new Teams app. Make sure tab is selected. For me, that's the default, but just make sure it's selected. Click OK. Select a hosting type. Okay, let's flip back to the documentation for a second. So it says to choose Azure as the front-end hosting type. You don't need any other resources, and you want to choose JavaScript as the programming language. Okay, we can do that. Azure and JavaScript. Give it a name. Right, now here's where we want to say my first Teams tab app and press enter. At this point, it's going to go and build a whole load of things for you, which is great. So if you see this, yes, you want to trust the authors of files in this folder, that it's being built out for us. It's going to go and build a whole load of files for us, a whole directory structure to kind of hold everything about our Teams app in. And in a minute, we're going to go through that. It only takes a few seconds. And like the screenshot says, we've got this structure here. Let's go and check that. Yep, look at this. Like we've got exactly the same as they've got in their screenshot. That's great. Right, so now we can take a tour of the source code. So we can walk through it. So some interesting things to point out. So I'm learning stuff. I've no idea. So this is the state of your application, the state for your app in the folder. Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, so you've got things in here like settings. You've got the local environment settings, which aren't really sort of set up. You've got some default stuff for the local environment and all the rest of it. We've got some app packaging stuff. So this is when it builds out the Teams app package. This is what it's going to use to build that out. We've got a folder called tabs. That's got some source in it. It's got some components in it. So if you're familiar with TypeScript, this will be familiar to you. If you're not, don't worry about it. You can see the names here of these things like privacy tab, terms of use, app. So kind of looking like they might be the kind of basis of an application. Okay, and the settings.json file. I didn't see that. That's that one. Is it talking about? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we did go through that one. And then the source code for the actual tab capabilities in the tabs folder. Yep, we were just looking through that. And things like apps and tab config. All right. What's kind of interesting, I suppose, is that this also includes a page called privacy and a page called terms of use. The reason for that is that when you create a Teams application, you have to specify a page for the terms of use and you have to specify a page in your app for privacy. That's so that when you submit it to the store, that content is all there. So what this scaffolding has done is created sort of placeholder pages for you that you can use. And the reason for that is that it makes it very easy then to go from this scaffolding code into your Teams application without it failing saying, I don't have a privacy page, or I don't have a terms of use page or anything like that. All right, let's go. What's the next step? Okay, sign into your Microsoft 365 account. Okay, well, we can do that. And what does this do? Okay, it shows, okay, we could do all that. We could sign into Microsoft 365 for that. So how do you do that? So open Visual Studio Code, go back to the Teams toolkit, select sign into 365. Okay, we can do that. So come back over here, sign into 365. Requires an organizational account. Yeah, we've already talked through what the developer program is. So I'm just going to click sign in. This is a brand new machine, so it is kind of the first time Visual Studio is run, so I need to allow some firewall rules for this. Sign in as the user I'm already signed in as. You are signed in and can close this page. Great. And this is updated to be my M365 account, which is all brilliant. And I've got some extra things down here now, which is exciting. Now you're ready to build the app and run it locally. All right, so big moment of truth. Apparently we just press F5 and it will run. All right, this could take some time to complete. All right, and you may get a security certificate, in which case we'll click yes to it or continue or something. And then Teams, the web client, opens in a browser window. Okay. And then we need to add the app. So there's quite a few things that are going to happen, I think, when we press F5. So first of all, oh, hello. So Node is not in the supported version list. Click continue anyway. If you just installed Node 10, 12, 14, restart Visual Studio Code for the change to take effect. We haven't just installed it. Node.js version 16 is not in the supported version list of 10, 12, and 14. Now, I think that's what it's saying, is that Visual Studio Code really wants versions 10, 12, and 14, and we've got version 16, and therefore it's not happy. I wonder if there's a good way of proving that. So yes, look, we installed look at the file name. We installed Node v16. Okay, However, Visual Studio would quite like v10, v12, v14. Now, what should we do about that? What we could do is uninstall Node and then go and find version 14 and go and install it. That's probably the right thing to do. The other thing we could do is sort of say, well, for what we're using Node for, maybe there's not that much difference between version 14 and version 16, and so we'll go ahead and try it anyway. And I think that's probably what we should do first. If we get loads of odd problems, we can always come back, we can uninstall the Node version 16, and we can go and install version 14. So let's click continue anyway and see what it does. So it's going to try and build our project, our scaffolding, our tab app. And this involves going through quite a few processes and things. So there's a lot of dependencies that will need to be downloaded because this is the first time this project's ever been built. So it needs to download .NET Core, it needs to download a whole bunch of libraries. So that is going to take quite a long time. If I run out of things to talk about, I'll pause the video and we can resume once it's ready to go. The other thing it's going to do, it's actually going to take all of our code and package it into a Teams application. So I talked about this on the overview video about what a Teams app actually is. It's a manifest that describes the capabilities. So it's going to create a manifest which describes the capabilities of our tab app as being an application that just has a single tab in it. And it's going to take all of that together and it's going to make an entirely new Teams application. It's then going to deploy that, kind of open it up, if you like, inside the Teams experience. So we're going to see that as showing up. I'll come back to this in a minute. It's going to show up in Teams as a thing we can add to our Teams client, and then we'll be able to use it. All right. So let's talk about this message that's popped up. To debug applications in Teams, your localhost server must be on HTTPS. Okay. So you may skip this step. So Teams for Trust, it wants to install a self-certified certificate. Okay, we're cool with that. I think that's the thing it told us might happen. So we'll click continue to that. And yes, to install the certificate. And it's still building things, I think, or it might actually be compiling now. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna unpause it if anything exciting happens. Okay, unpause. Things are starting to happen. I think it's done all the building. And now, it's still waiting around a bit. But I feel like, there we go, something is happening. Another firewall thing from Node this time. So for reference, on this machine, it took about 10 minutes of Visual Studio code just sitting here, spinning, doing the build. That first time build is going to take a long time because it takes down all these dependencies, has to draw them down. So just be aware of that. It can take a little bit of time. What we're doing now is, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but it says starting the that's not going to help at all. Starting the development server. I thought it might zoom in a bit, but it doesn't. Starting the development server. So it's actually going to host a little web server inside kind of the terminal here that we can use to access, and it's going to host our code on that. Everything inside Teams, when you're building applications such as tabs, they're really just web pages, so they need hosting on a web server. This is a nice, easy way to do it locally. It's like a development server that you can use locally. It'll just sort of happen when you F5 in Visual Studio Code. It'll spin it all up and start that web server running for you. And that's what's happening right now. And compiled successfully. And it says that you can view it in the browser, which is great. What it's also doing is it's going to open up my browser and it's going to sign me in. And it's going to probably need me to click this button and do the actual sign in, and it's going to try and take me somewhere. So let's see where it takes me. Okay, let's say yes. And it's going all sorts of places, but I think it's going to finally land on... Oh, All sorts of things are happening. I'm kind of not going to touch anything. It's taking me into Teams. Oh, and this page is having a problem. Okay, error code out of memory. All right, that's interesting. I feel like that might be a Teams problem rather than a me problem, or it's possibly some kind of looping problem. I'm just going to click refresh and see what happens. And we'll see what it does. So I've got an error message over here now to say the window has crashed. Okay, let's click close. Oh, it closed Visual Studio. Okay, right, never mind. Let's close, well, we need to keep our instructions going. Let's keep those there. I think it's closed everything else. Right, so let's come back again. Let's start that again. I'm not quite sure what happened there. It could be a combination of an underpowered machine. It could be because it's the very first time we're doing all of this stuff. No matter. We can come back in. We haven't lost any of the stuff we've done. All of that, the downloading of the libraries, all of that is kind of useful and needed to happen. And what we might find now is that if we press F5 again, I'd forgotten about that Node thing. It will be a lot faster to get to the point of compiling, to starting the development server and everything. So we can try that, and we'll see what it does this time around. So this stuff is like, I'm not going to edit this out because actually this is useful for you. Like you may have exactly this experience, and I don't really know what we're going to do about it yet. But we'll figure it out as we go along, and we'll get it working. Okay, so we're already at the starting the development server section, and hopefully any minute now that will be ready. So you can see it's compiled and it's opening up the browser again. It's signing in again. Now, one possibility I hadn't thought about is that it might be the change in policy is the problem. So I'm trying to sideload an application, but if my policy hasn't taken effect, then you might get this strange experience. And if that's the case, we are just going to have to wait probably a day or so before the policy takes effect, or maybe it says to wait an hour or two. Sometimes I think you should wait kind of 24 hours because all of this stuff gets cached as well. So I think what might be happening here is that because my old policy doesn't allow sideloading, but my new policy does, the new policy hasn't quite taken effect yet. Let's have a look at some of these error messages we've been ignoring to see if there's anything in here. There's a 503 response from Teams, from local.teams. Source map, I don't know if that's related or not. These may actually not be real errors. They may be actually fine. I did see a cannot find Teams app entitlements, so that sort of makes me wonder, actually, is it something to do with the policies that's the problem? I think probably it is. That would be my guess. The other thing we can do to test that theory out a little bit is to try and close this again. Ooh. Let's try and stop debugging as well. Let's come back to Teams here and see if we get the option to sideload those apps yet. Okay, manage apps. I do actually see that option to upload a custom app now, which is interesting. So I didn't see that before. So that means that policy has now been applied, which is great. I wonder if this is a resource problem. How do you... That's annoying. What I'd like to do is this, I think. So I wonder if I'm underpowered on my machine. So I wonder if that's the problem. So this is a weird inconsistent state where, you know, maybe teams in Edge, for whatever reason, it might not even be Teams in Edge. It might be the combination of that plus Visual Studio Code. All of it is a bit too much memory for 4 gig of memory, and so things are kind of breaking down a little bit. That's kind of what this looks like, with this kind of stuttering, the kind of giving up. We did get that whole message about being out of memory. So what I'm tempted to do at this point is to go and give this machine a bit more memory and come back and try it again. So that's what I'm going to go and do now. So you won't notice this, but I'm going to go away, reprovision up the RAM a little bit on this machine and come back, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back, and this time... This time I have 8 gig of RAM. Same machine, same setup. So let's get back to where we were. Visual Studio Code. Teams is opening as well, for good measure. Let's close it for now. Right, let's press F5 again. So we're starting the development server. Process again. This might take a little bit longer because of the restart. Okay, and let's see what happens this time round. There we go. Fantastic. Right. Let's close some of this stuff, move some of this stuff out of the way so you can actually see what on earth is going on. So what it's asking to do, what it's prompting to do, is to add this app, this Microsoft Teams app. And this is an app that's literally just come into being when we compiled this code and the app manifest has been built. It doesn't exist in an app store or anything like that. We are sideloading it, so that means our policy obviously works. And I can click add at this point. It's going to add the app. And the really interesting thing about this is this is running in Teams, but it is also kind of all just happening locally. So kind of amazing to like go from the scaffolding. All of the code is still running on my machine, but I'm now viewing it through Teams, through the app experience in Teams. This code, what we're looking at on the screen right here, where it says, "Congratulations, Tom Morgan, your app is running," yada, yada, yada. This is the actual code of my application. I can show you that. So if I flip back over to here for a second, if we go into the Explorer and into tabs and source and components and tab, we've got a welcome. We've got something here about the function name. If I go and find, well, let's have a look. We've got privacy terms of use. Some of these you'll see kind of matching in a minute. So what I'm looking for is kind of this stuff that says your app is running in your local environment. And there's some interesting things here about getting the current user and the photo and things like that. What I'm really looking for, but I can't find anywhere, is all of that stuff. So where would that be? It's probably in this welcome component, isn't it? So in here, in the sample section, there's a cheeky, here we are, welcome component. It's got a, let's go down to, here we go. Congratulations, your app is running in your, and whatever the friendly environment name is. So it'd be like development environment probably. Let's have a quick look again. In your local environment. So we could actually change some of this. Let's take this and let's add a new line. Let's keep it H1, keep it centered. And let's say, we've just built our first tab app for Teams. Exclamation mark, 2 exclamation marks. Right, so 1 exclamation mark. Let's save it. Now, we're using, as we saved it, it's automatically updated. So this is the actual code that is running on our machine. We're looking at it through here. So we've created a tab application. You can see it. It's showing up on the side like this. It's showing in personal app. We could actually go and add it. If it was an actual app, we could go and add it to a team. There's a couple of different things you can do here. So you can access basic information. So for instance, if I click authorize here, it's going to ask for some permissions to sign in, read the profile, all the rest of it. I can say yes to that, and it will go and get who I am. Very cool. Let's come back then to, let's create a new window, because what we lost was our instructions that we're supposed to be following. So we got hung up on this bit, but for me, for my experience, going from 4 gig of RAM to 8 gig of RAM and or waiting for the policy to take effect was the thing that kind of unblocked it for me. So I'm going to keep all of that in the video. It's going to make it a super long video, but I think it's really important to work through some of these problems in real time, because, you know, you you may well have this problem too, and now you don't need to worry about it. You know what you need to do to solve it. So, okay, let's review what we just went through. We finally did this add process. We didn't see this actually, but we were already using the web thing, opened up the web experience. We saw this, we actually played with it a little bit and changed it and made it different. So that was interesting. We didn't need to use this troubleshooting step. The big thing about this is making sure side loading works in your Teams application. Okay, so we've built our first tab app. We're done. What's next? Let's move on. Let's do something different. Let's build a bot workspace. Okay, so let's quickly review this before we jump back to the code. So we're going to go back and create a new Teams app. And I'm going to show you how to do that when you're already in one, but that's fine. We're going to create a new Teams app, very similar to how we did it before. This time we're going to choose a bot. We're going to choose the JavaScript language again, and we're going to give it a nice name. All right, so we're still in our Teams tab app, but let's click on the Teams toolkit icon. Let's click Create a New Teams app. And again, click Create New Teams app. This time we're going to say a bot and click OK. We're going to choose JavaScript as our language. We're going to call it testbot1 because that's a snappy name. Click OK. It's going to build, again, a load of scaffolding for us so that we don't have to. And very, very similar to how it did it for tabs. It's going to create it. And we've got a different looking set of things here. We've got an adaptive cards folder. We've got, again, an index, an app package again. So let's look through a quick tour of the code. So interesting thing. So the bot code is stored in the bot directory. Okay, so that's all this directory here. The bot/teamsbot.js is the main entry point for the app. Okay. So if we look at this code here, you can see there's some things in here around recording the light count. There's some trigger commands for welcome and learn, and some other things. And you can kind of see there's some good placeholder, like some comments to documentation to learn more about what this code is doing as well, which is really nice. All right. What's next? We can build it. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure we're signed in again. Then we need to press F5. And again, it's going to add a new application. And when it's built that application, well, it will be a conversation with a bot. So let's try all that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I'm still signed in. Yes, I am. Then I'm going to press F5. I'm going to continue again for my node. Again, might be a problem this time around. Wasn't a problem before, so fingers crossed it won't be a problem this time. And this is going to take a while to install, so I'm going to pause the video and unpause it when some interesting things happen. Okay, so I think it's done the build mostly, and so interesting. So this I think is going to fail. And I've just noticed a message. I might be wrong, but it can't find ngrok, which completely makes sense because I don't have ngrok installed. Now, I'm not quite sure what it's going to do about that, whether or not it's going to carry on anyway and whether or not it's going to be all right with it. I'm looking at this. There's a message here that says it can't find my ngrok file. Now, that might be a problem. It might not be a problem. It's still doing something. It's actually currently registering the bot, which is a process that needs to happen in your kind of Microsoft environment, in your Azure environment anyway. So I'm going to let that all happen anyway. We might need to go and install ngrok and do all that sort of stuff, or possibly this is going to do it all for us and we might not need to do anything. So we'll wait and see. Okay, unpause. It's doing something. It seems to be mostly okay with not having ngrok, but we'll see if that's a real problem when we come to use it. It wants me to sign in again, so that's fine. Let's try clicking don't show this again. And I think any minute now. There we go. So this is the new bot, the testbot 1 that we created. Again, a new application, so we can go and add that. Side loading it again, so it's just showing up on our Teams client so we can play with it. And this gives us hopefully a chat experience. Okay, so ignore everything I said about ngrok not needing to be installed. It's done some magic. Whether or not it's running ngrok in the background, whether or not it's using something else that is not ngrok, doesn't really matter. Ngrok, by the way, if you don't know, is a tunneling tool. So it gives you an ability to run some code locally on your machine, but have a endpoint which is accessible on the web, like an HTTPS endpoint that the bot service, the Microsoft bot service and Microsoft Teams can hit as if it was a public endpoint, but actually it tunnels all the way back through to your machine and serves up your local code. Really, really useful for doing debug scenarios where you're integrating with something like Teams or the bot framework that needs a publicly accessible address. My guess is that it's probably using it under the hood somehow. Doesn't matter. We didn't need to install it anyway. So we have a Hello World bot, which is really nice. We can talk to it. I don't know what it does, but let's just say hello. And we can send it that message, hopefully, and see what it says. We'll send it hello. I don't know if it's going to reply or not, or whether it's made to reply, or what it's going to do. It might just ignore us. We've got some buttons we can click on here that look like they open documentation. They certainly do. And when we click in here as well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get it to do it now. There we go. We have some suggestions for welcome and learn. So if we do learn, so it might be that these are the keywords that it really likes. And this gives us an adaptive card around learning. And we can actually click I like this and it will increment the like count. So there's some kind of basic functionality going on here, which is kind of good. All of this is code that is in here and that is in this project. So it's a great starting place to play with. But you can see how that, by following this scaffolding, you don't really need to worry about the how of building up your first bot. Now you can kind of focus in, okay, well, I've got these trigger commands for welcome and learn. They do different things. They render these adaptive cards. This is the learn one. This is the welcome one. Or you could have your bot do something completely different, like, I don't know, respond to this in a completely different way, add your own message, add your own command. You can see here you could add, well, let's do this actually. Let's just uncomment this section. If it'll let me. For some reason, it's probably because I'm in a virtual machine. It's not very happy about some of my control. No, it's not very happy about uncommenting. Okay, pretty odd. I'm gonna have to do it the old school way. Let's quickly do this. Okay, and let's put in that hello command that I tried to do before that didn't do anything. Case is hello. Let's send a message. Let's send this is my first bot. We're going to click save. I think it's going to just compile it and it will just work. We should just test that out. I'm not sure. So if I now say, oh, it's doing a whole bunch of things in the background, so perhaps I should wait for them to finish. Oh, don't know, maybe not. Let's click hello. Yeah, I don't know if we need to go through the process of restarting it in order for some of that stuff to take effect. Possibly we do. It feels like we might do, because this isn't doing anything. I don't think there's anything else I need to do here. So what we'll do, let's just restart this. Go through the sign-in process again. Jump to the application again. Okay, click to add the bot again. And now you can still see the conversation from before. This time let's send hello again. And this time you get that response. This is my first bot. So we've changed some code as well. So we've done it even a bit more than in the documentation. So that's how we get started with the bot. So we build our first bot, which is very cool. Great. I didn't show this actually, but you can set breakpoints. Like, it's just local code. I showed that really by making changes, but I should have done a breakpoint. It would have been a lot faster. So yeah, you can put a breakpoint on to kind of stop the code whilst it's running, see how it works, see what it does. It's really nice. Okay, let's go do something else. Let's go and create a messaging extension application. So how does this work? Very similar. Create a new Teams app. This time we're going to choose the messaging extension capability. We're going to choose JavaScript again. We're going to create some more code, and we'll take a quick look at it. So let's come back here. Let's go back to our Teams toolkit. Let's create a new Teams app. This time we're going to choose messaging extension. Choose JavaScript. My first messaging extension. Click OK. It's going to go and create all the code we need in a new project. Again, we've got a couple of different things here. We've got an app package. We've got a bot folder. Now, the way messaging extensions work is it's really a bot under the hood that services the requests that we make to the messaging extension. So that's why there's a bot folder. And in this bot folder, let's have a look. There's a Teams bot. That's interesting. I don't really know what I was expecting to see in here, but I don't think it was that, because I was expecting to see a messaging extension bot that looked like this, not a Teams bot one that looked like that. So this looks more like the bot that we've just created from before, but maybe it's not. This is messaging extension code, so maybe it's the same code. Maybe it's the same code used for both samples, and this time it's just set up to do messaging extensions. So either way, let's build it and run it and see what it does. So make sure we're still signed in. Yes, we are. Press F5. And this time we'll see what it does. So again, I'm going to pause the video here and unpause it when it gets interesting. Okay. I think it's mostly nearly finished. Got some of those same warnings around ngrok that we had with the bot, but I'm not going to worry about that just now. Registering again. Okay. And back to Teams, back to signing in. Okay, perfect. Let's add that one. Now, how to use. So let's go back to, whilst this is adding. Oh, this is nice. we get a nice message to say it's been installed. We can click try it. So we get taken to a chat with the bot. And this is the same bot, which is interesting because it's the same code. But now we have a messaging extension down here, wherever it is. I'm not quite sure which one it is, actually. Yeah, where is it? Let's try. Okay, fine. It's showing up in recent here. So this is what I meant by saying this is where you add, like, this is where messaging extensions go. They go down here where you add things of your own sort down here. If you like, your own applications can live down here. I've got my own one down here. And there's a Bing one here, maybe. Oh, News, Bing News. There's a Viva Learning one. And if I click the three dots, I can also see, for instance, this one that we added. I didn't actually read to see what you're supposed to do to use it. And I probably should have done that. If not, we'll go back to the... Oh, here we go. It's looking up some information, I guess. Super test. Ah, good. It's created a nice card with a description, and I can send that into the chat. Let's go back to the documentation to see how it's supposed to work. So we can try it out. And you can either go to chat or you can go to the Teams channel and enable the message composing. We'd go and find it by the three dots. You can put in a search string to get a list of matching terms. You'll get that nice kind of adaptive card that I showed you, and you can post it into the channel. Cool. We could also change this as well. So in here, if we now go, now that we know what it does, it's a little bit easier to look through some of this code and pick out on the adaptive cards invoke the binding. Teams messaging extension query. Here you go. So, oh, it's searching the npm.js. That's interesting. For the query. What an odd thing to do. Okay, I suppose it's a good place to go and kind of get some data from. So it's searching the npm registry, and then it's building up a card with those results and just kind of putting them onto the, doing some link unfurling as well. There's all sorts of things in here you can go and play with. But the point is, it's created the scaffolding for you for your very first messaging extension, and it's done all that sort of work to... So look, what have we got in here? So you can see all of the npm libraries. How interesting! All of the work for you to nice. All of the work for you to create a messaging extension. So that's really nice. Okay, we're nearly at the end of this particular tutorial, but let's go to the next step. 100% complete. So we have built several things. The final step is to deploy it into Azure. Okay, so how do we do this? We make sure we're signed into Azure, first of all, by going to the Teams toolkit here and clicking Sign into Azure. Okay, so I'm going to sign in. I'm going to use a different account, only because I signed into Azure with a different account. So I'm going to come over here, sneaky, so you can't see me typing all my secret passwords in. So I'm going to do that quickly now, and a bit more verification again. Let's come back. So I'm signed into. I'm now signed into Azure. Next things to do is to deploy. So for each of, let's have a look. So each of these things. So you really need to be using. So you've got this deployment section here that you've got like a one-click provision in the cloud. So let's just like step through that. We've got this messaging extension that's currently running. So I'm just going to stop that, and then I'm going to click provision in the cloud. This is going to actually go and publish the messaging extension. That's okay. We might decide we actually want to go and do one of the others, like the tabs. We can do that too. We can go back to them. We can load up the tab application. It looks like this, in case you'd forgotten. With the tabs in it, if we go back down to source, you can kind of see the components, the welcome message. Where's the welcome message and all the rest of it that we added? Where's the bit that we put in? Here we go, with our welcome message. So we can come, it wants, so that's an interesting one. So every time you flip projects, you have to sign into, oh no you don't. It just did it for me. I went to click and it suddenly like changed. So that's worth just making sure if you flip projects, just make sure that you are stayed signed into to Azure. And then you can click provision in the cloud. Okay. What this is going to do is go and provision all the resources for you. So this is kind of an important step. So it is going to go and build components for you in your Azure environment. That might end up, well, it will end up costing you money. So just be aware of that. The pros to this is that you don't need to understand all the components you need to build out. It's going to build them all for you. The cons are you're not completely aware of all the costs. So you can do this. I would make sure you build it all in a separate resource group so that you can understand what those costs are. You can delete it all if you're just playing around. You can delete it all at the end of this video and carry on. But yeah, that's just kind of worth making sure. There is a pricing calculator as well. So you can click pricing calculator. This will take you to the Azure pricing calculator. Unfortunately, it won't tell you the pricing of all the things it's about to deploy. It just takes you to the standard pricing calculator. So, so you don't really know how much it's going to cost before you provision it. But you can click provision, and then it's going to build a whole load of things for you. It's going to kind of just go away and do it. It's not going to ask you any more questions. It's just going to go and put it into Azure for you. We're going to go and take a look once it's done, and I'll show you what it's built. Okay, so that's finished. What's it actually done? Well, it's not deployed anything. It's not taken this code and deployed it to Azure. It's provisioned. What does that mean? It means it's built all of the components in Azure, but none of the code. And I can show you that. So if I go over to my Azure instance, it's created a resource group, which is the name of the application, and then a -rg. And it's created three things: the storage account, an app service plan, and an app service. These are all the things that are needed to run the application, but it hasn't actually deployed any of the code to them. If I want to do that, and I can do that from in here as well, there's a deploy to the cloud button. So you should not do this until you've done the provisioning step, but you can now click deploy to the cloud. And again, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to pop up at the bottom. It's going to think about it for a bit. It's going to do like a build, and then it's going to take that build and deploy it up to the cloud. So again, I'm going to pause until that's done because it takes a little bit of time. You can see it going through the steps at the moment. You can carry on working when it's doing this as well. It's just kind of in the background process, just deploying it up to Azure for you. It might take a little bit of time. So I'm going to pause the video now and we'll unpause it when it's finished. Okay. So it just disappears, like there's no big fanfare to say it's done. And in fact, you won't even really notice any big difference coming over here because it's just been deployed inside of these things. However, what you can now do is if you go over to the Run and Debug tab and drop down up here where it says Debug Edge, you can launch remote rather than like debug up here. Launch remote is tied to the Azure instance you've just deployed to. So it's going to do the same thing through Teams around loading the app and everything, except that what it's going to load and install this time is the version that's actually running in your Azure, not the local version. I will try and show you what that looks like. Let's just let it step through the process again. So I'm going to say that again because it's kind of confusing. This looks like it's doing the same thing as before. It's kind of not. So we've lost a couple of things. We've got a nice name now rather than the kind of -debug, -local thing. If we add this and run it, this is actually going to install and run the code from Azure, not our local code. So first thing, it's a lot faster. Where it says your app is running in your Azure environment, not your local environment. So it's picked up the environment difference. And crucially, this bit here, if I come back over here and delete this line out again that says your app is running and save it, it's not going to update. This isn't going to update now because this is running from Azure, the code that we published to Azure. It's no longer running on our local machine. So this is production ready, if you like. This is ready to go. You could take this application manifest, you could share it with other people. If this was how you wanted your application to look, you could take the application manifest and upload it to the store. It's no longer running on your machine. This is running out in Azure. So you can now make changes. So if you wanted to, I don't know, let's take this line here that says we've just built our first app for Teams and change it to we're in Azure. Right. How do I get this code that I've just changed up to Azure now? First of all, I probably don't need to stop, but it's probably not a bad idea to stop this code. Come back down here. I don't need to re-provision. I do need to click deploy to the cloud again. Okay. And that is going to take the latest version of my code and push it up to Azure. Once this has happened, then I can go and click the run in Teams again, and then it's going to run the latest code from Azure, and we will see that kind of that has updated. So I'm going to pause whilst it goes through the deployment process again, because you don't need to watch that. Okay, so it says successfully deployed to the cloud. If I come back to here and launch remote again, and let it install again. In fact, you don't need to go through this installation process each time, because once it's installed, it will actually be, I don't think I'll be able to get to it to click it fast enough. It will actually be here. So I actually just cancelled that install process. And I can just now open it and you can see the updated code. We're in Azure. So I can do that every time now, and I can do it from within the Teams app or the web app. I can just go to installed apps. I can see all of them here. The ones that have the local debug thing after them won't work unless it's actually running in here. But the one that's deployed to Azure, this one will work all the time now. And I can give it to someone else and it will work on their machine as well. All right, that was a mammoth session. We went through quite a lot in that session. This is quite an involved kind of hello world. I like it actually. It's really detailed. It goes through the whole process. We've got to the end of the kind of learning. We can go back to the getting started. We've completed this. This was how we built our first application using JavaScript. It was a nice kind of intro into building tabs, into building bots and building messaging extensions. Gave us really good scaffolding to get started for building whatever else, we're going to go and take it and build with it. I hope it's been useful. We hit some road bumps along the way. I'm going to keep them in because I think they're a good learning tool. And hopefully it's been useful. We had that RAM bump as well. So if you're struggling with RAM or struggling seeing some of the errors I was seeing, consider bumping the RAM if you can. Hope it's been useful. I do lots of videos like this, so check out my channel, subscribe, catch me on Twitter, whatever else you're doing today. Have a great one, and I will talk to you again next time.